So, if you're not watching this, I suggest one, you go follow me on my Instagram at Wave of the World Podcast and check out this new merch that I'm rocking. It's called Protect the Culture. It's a lifestyle brand that focuses on uplifting communities through consistent positivity in three specific approaches: music, community outreach, and the arts. And I'm all for that. I love any message that supports a community, and yeah, go check them out. Something that I've been thinking about over these past couple of days was the Breakfast Club interview between Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, Charlemagne, Angela Yee, DJ Envy. Will Smith really spoke on a lot of things that I don't feel like we as people often look at within ourselves whenever we're living our day-to-day lives. The point that I took away from it was, how far are you willing to go to be successful? And once you get there, do you have anything that you're holding on to that is unnecessary luggage? He talked about the famous scene with him on Fresh Prince of Bel Air and how he had to dig deep from a deep place of wanting to impress James Avery. And anybody can relate to that if you're an actor. I'm not an actor, so I can't speak to it. But when you want to impress someone so bad and then you dig into that mentality that not a lot of people can reach, I feel like that's better a better way to relate to other people that are skilled in different ways, but you have the ability and the capability to do things that other people may not be able to do. So whenever you tap into your own, regardless if it requires emotion or not, that is what separates you from your competition. But what he was speaking about was trying to separate Will Smith from what people thought Will Smith was. And I've been thinking on it a little bit lately, and I feel like we all, in a sense, need to do that. Sometimes we get so caught up in what people will think of us, or what if this doesn't work out, and we get so deep into our heads. But at the end of the day, if you're doing it and it makes you happy, then there's nothing else that should matter. And I felt like that was very powerful of him. I pray that he becomes a motivational speaker, because the way that, one, he's handled his professional career, two, he's handled his career with his, not career, that sounds weird, his relationship with his wife, three, the way that he's handled his relationship with his kids, all growing up in this social media driven world that we're continuing to grow into. And it's just phenomenal whenever you think about it. And then what I like to do personally is to then take that information and use it for my own personal life. And that's what I think the takeaway is from this point. Um, I really like Will Smith. He, I don't know if he's on my Mount Rushmore of actors. That's a good question, though. I think I'm going to start calling this segment story time, regardless if it's me or not, um, I want this to be a staple in the podcast. And I hope this sparks something in your minds that you may have gone through. I don't necessarily care what people think about me. And I hope that me sharing and being honest, open, and transparent will help you, if you have the problem, to become just like me. So, the story that I wanted to share today was actually one that I was having with my girlfriend the other night. And we were talking about friendship and how those friends seem to come few and far between. And I started opening up to her because she had told me that she really only had two friends growing up. And I was telling her, like, I can relate to that a little bit because I had a lot of people that knew me, but just because you know of me doesn't mean that you actually know me. You don't know what I like. I don't know what you like. I don't know your tendencies. You don't know my preferences, things of that nature. And that can get lost in translation when you're growing up in high school and learning about yourself and everything else that's going on. Because Lord knows the amount of hormones that are going through a 13 to 18-year old's body at the time. And then you got to deal with math homework on top of that, math homework, science homework. The way my school was set up, we were making videos. I was like, I can't shoot today. No, sir. But, anyways, what we were discussing was how she didn't feel like she had a lot of friends. And I was then telling her, like, I don't either. I could probably say that I probably have like two to three friends right now. And I'm going to keep their names secret for protection of them. I don't know if they probably don't want me saying their names anyway. And I was explaining to her because she saw me going out with my coworkers, all that other stuff. And I was explaining to her, I was like, one of my friends who will know who he is whenever I'm describing him this way is I didn't meet him until my fifth job, and then he went up and moved to Africa. But the one of the ways that I know that he's a true friend is because even though he was in a different country, still kept in contact with me. We were still checking up on each other, um, just keeping it 100, catching up with each other, and seeing how each other's doing in our respective sides of the world. And I even told her, like, there are some things that we may not agree on. Like, I believe in God, he doesn't, but that doesn't mean that we can't be friends with each other. And I think that sometimes we have the idea of like a high school musical or even a mixed dish mindset that we should have four to six friends and we should all be in a group and everybody should be friends with everybody, but it doesn't even happen like that in real life. And I was telling her, like, the reason why I consider really like three people my like close knit friends is because we keep in contact with each other, but one of those friends was from high school, just one. Another one I didn't meet till my fifth job, and then the next one I met in my sixth job. So I wasn't necessarily looking for the friends. I was more so working on myself as a person and making sure that I was okay in my own space. I feel like that's important before friendship because whenever you try to lean too much on one person, then you start going to that person for everything instead of self assessing how you need to move forward. Now, don't get me wrong, it's great to have friends to lean on in certain situations, but it shouldn't be the end all be all whenever you're moving forward with your life. And I came to a revelation of my own sort, but that I didn't even realize because I've just been living my life how I have been for the past 2 years now, and I didn't realize the growth that I have made because I didn't really celebrate it. And I came to this conclusion. I was like, you know what? You deserve a pat on the back, even though I've treated myself well this in 2019. That doesn't mean I shouldn't continue to do the same thing in 2020. But I feel like we should all be more aware of the growth when it's happening. And I hope this podcast helps you do that. Go look me up on Instagram at Sir Sophisticated. If you want to support my Patreon, I would appreciate it. We're going to have some great things coming. I plan to do 2 videos a month, and I plan to put bonus stuff up on the Patreon. You can support as low as $5 a month. That's less than Netflix, that's less than Hulu, it's less than Spotify, less than Disney Plus. I promise. It ain't that much, but I appreciate it. I also appreciate any fan that supports. I've been getting a lot of positive feedback from my first episode, and I just want all of the peoples to know that it does not go unnoticed. Okay, so what I wanted to take away from this episode was to recognize your growth while it's happening. I also want everyone listening to understand your role at the time and adjust and readjust if necessary. Also, to not become a prisoner of the moment. So, this positive affirmation ending, I just really wanted to hit on 3 main points. One, don't lose yourself in trying to make others like you or trying to make them happy. I feel like a lot of times we get so caught up in caring what the world thinks. And sometimes the other person on the other side of the computer, one may just be having a bad day, or two is looking for something negative to say rather than say something positive. 9 times out of 10, people don't go out of their way to say something positive, but if something offends them or makes them feel a certain type of way, then they'll automatically respond negatively. I feel like a lot of people have an infinite word count of the amount of negative things to say, but when it comes to something positive, it's like, I'll let it slide this time. Good job. So, number one. Number two, self reflect often and daily. I didn't realize that conversation with my girlfriend would turn into a self reflection of myself and my relationships with people. Bouncing off of that, the third one, know the differences between friends and acquaintances and choose both of them wisely. Keep your friends close, enemies closer. Acquaintances are somewhere in the middle. Um, your friends are important, but not everyone is your friend. Make sure you know the difference because acquaintances aren't always going to be there for you, and you can tell by the way that you interact with someone and how often you talk, what your conversations are about, and how they impact your life if they are a friend or acquaintance. Okay, Mount Rushmore. What are we doing? Mount Rushmore today. I got it. Let's last segment, okay? So this week's Mount Rushmore is going to be a little bit shorter. I feel like the more you think about it, the better case that you could make for this. And I want to know everyone's Mount Rushmore of jingles. Now, they can be local jingles, they can be commercials. The commercial should have the jingle in it if it's a good commercial. But I'm curious to see where everybody's mind goes whenever you think of a jingle. Now, my top four are my top four, like I've said in previous podcasts. Um, but I'm just interested. Email me at waveoftheworld19 at gmail.com or comment under my Instagram at Wave of the World Podcast. I'm interested to hear where your mind goes whenever you think of a jingle. Now, my first one off the board is McDonald's. Ba da ba ba ba. Like there is nothing. They're not even saying actual words. But you know, as soon as I say ba da ba ba ba, you know what I'm talking about. That's classic. Number two, Kit Kat. Like they made a whole commercial off of sound, and I learned that in my video production classes in high school, it don't sound like that whenever you bite into a Kit Kat. I never thought about it like that. They were breaking celery, all types of vegetables that made snapping sounds, but put it to the sound of a Kit Kat that made you want a Kit Kat because that's what it felt like whenever it was in your mouth. That brilliant. That was genius. Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Golden. Number three for me is J.G. Wentworth. I have never needed to call J.G. Wentworth, but I know 877 Cash Now. I know that I can call them if I need a cash settlement. You hear me? They had opera commercials. They had people screaming out of windows in New York. It was just brilliant. Like the sky was the limit. The most recent one I saw was people on a train, I guess in New York, and everybody in the subway was, hey, it was getting down to JG Wentworth. I would too. All right. So, last one. This is purely for I don't know what the term is called whenever you like a sound so much that you just want to like soothe in it. You understand me? Um, this last one is Allstate, solely because of the man that does the voice for Allstate. Now, I'm blanking on his name. What is his name? Dennis Haysbert. Probably has one of the smoothest jazz voices known to man. And even before I said what his name was, you probably knew who I was talking about. It's Allstate Stage. Are you in good hands? Like, y'all know that man is close to like a Barry White, like a Luther Vandross, something along those lines. I'd love to hear the man sing because when you get down and deep like that, I think I have a deep voice sometimes. When you first wake up and you sound like ET. Um, but I have never been that deep in my life, and I don't think I'll ever get there. But Allstate, man, are you in good hands? That is my Mount Rushmore of jingles. Let me know what you think. Wave of the World podcast on Instagram, wave of the world 19 at gmail.com. I am excited to hear your thoughts. And we out.